On the edge of a forgotten coastal city where rusted towers leaned like tired giants and the sea hummed softly against broken docks, lived a little human girl named Myra. She was small for her age, with wind-tangled hair and eyes that watched the sky more than the streets. Myra lived with her grandmother in a patched metal house, and every morning she carried a bag of scavenged food to share with the stray animals that hid among the ruins. One cold evening, as the sun bled orange into the ocean, Myra heard a sound unlike any she had ever known. It was a deep, trembling breath, heavy with pain, shaking the ground beneath her feet. Following the noise past collapsed bridges and twisted steel, she found him. A dragon. Not the shining kind from storybooks, but a massive creature of cracked emerald scales and torn wings, curled beside an abandoned power station. His body was enormous, yet he looked smaller somehow, folded in on himself like he wished to disappear. Scars crossed his hide, old burns and newer wounds glowing faintly, and one great golden eye opened to watch her with fear instead of rage. Myra should have run, every story warned her to. Instead, she stepped closer, her heart pounding. "You are hurt," she whispered, her voice barely louder than the wind. The dragon did not move, but his breath slowed. "I have nowhere to go," his voice rumbled inside her mind, low and ashamed. "They chased me from the stars, and from the cities, and from the skis." Myra reached into her bag and pulled out a loaf of recycled bread and a flask of water. She placed them on the ground between them and took a step back. "You can have this," she said. "I bring food to anyone who needs it." The dragon stared at the tiny offering, then at the tiny girl. "No one has helped me before," he said, not without wanting something in return. Myra shrugged, the way her grandmother did. "You look lonely," she replied, "and lonely is worse than hungry." That night, Myra returned again and again, bringing bandages scavenged from old clinics, warming gel packs, and stories whispered softly into the dark. She cleaned his wounds with careful hands, never once asking his name. The dragon listened, and for the first time in decades, he slept without fear. By morning, the city still slept, unaware that something ancient and powerful had been saved by a child who owned almost nothing. When the sun rose, the dragon awoke to warmth instead of pain. Myra sat near his head, legs crossed, humming an off-key tune while watching the clouds drift. "Why do you help me, little one?" the dragon asked, his voice gentler now. Myra smiled. "Because someone once helped me," she said, "and that made the world feel less heavy." The dragon closed his eye, memories stirring. He remembered the stars, endless and bright, where dragons once guarded trade routes between worlds. He remembered treaties signed in light, promises of peace between species. And he remembered the day those promises broke. "They feared us," he told her, "feared our size, our fire, our long lives. They called us weapons, monsters, disasters waiting to happen. So they hunted us, world by world, until we were myths and bones." Myra listened without interrupting, the way she had learned to listen to her grandmother. "That is not fair," she said finally. The dragon laughed softly, a sound like shifting mountains. "Fairness is rare among the stars, little Myra." He told her his name then, Aurelian, a name older than her planet. Myra repeated it carefully, as if holding something fragile. Throughout the day, she brought more supplies, rope to brace his wing, insulating sheets to keep him warm. Other people passed nearby, but never looked closely, their eyes trained to avoid trouble. Aurelian watched them with bitterness and relief. When night fell again, strange lights appeared in the sky, faint at first, then growing brighter. Aurelian tensed, fear returning. "They have found me," he said, "they always do." Myra took his claw in both hands. "Then they will find me too," she said, "and I am not scared." Something shifted inside the dragon then, something long frozen. He realized that this small human had done what empires and fleets never had. She had seen him. The next morning, Myra woke to a sound that rattled her windows. A deep thrumming hum filled the air, rhythmic and powerful. She ran outside barefoot, heart racing. Jibs! Dozens of them hovered above her street, sleek silver hulls catching the sunlight, each marked with symbols she did not recognize. Neighbors poured out of their homes, staring upward in shock and fear. A ramp descended from the largest vessel, and beings of many shapes emerged, tall crystalline figures, furred giants, luminous silhouettes wrapped in light. They walked not toward the dragon, but toward Myra's small house. Aurelian watched from the ruins, stunned. "They came," he whispered, "but not for me." The first figure knelt before Myra, its voice echoing like chimes. "We have searched the stars for you, child of compassion," it said. Myra blinked, confused. "I am just Myra." Another stepped forward, projecting images into the air. Scenes of her tending wounds, sharing food, offering comfort. "Your kindness crossed faster than light," the being said, carried through ancient bonds. Aurelian understood then. When Myra had helped him, she had activated treaties older than betrayal. Dragon oaths, woven into the fabric of the galaxy. Any who saved a dragon without greed would be protected by all who still honored the old ways. "We come to repay a debt," the beings said together. Myra looked back toward the ruins where Aurelian lay, and then at her neighbors, trembling and silent. "Can you help him too?" she asked. The fleet turned as one, weapons powering down, healing arrays activating. For the first time in living memory, dragons were not alone. Aurelian was lifted gently by fields of light, his wounds sealed, his wings restored stronger than before. The city watched in awe as the homeless dragon rose into the sky, no longer broken. But he did not leave. Instead, he circled above Myra's home, roaring not in anger, but in declaration. "Let it be known," his voice thundered across the city and into orbit. "This world is under my protection." The alien fleet deployed machines that cleaned the air, stabilized crumbling structures, and restored long-dead power grids. They did not conquer, they repaired. They did not rule, they assisted. Myra's grandmother stood beside her, eyes wide, hand resting on her shoulder. "What did you do, little star?" she whispered. Myra leaned into her. "I helped someone who needed it." News spread across the planet, and then beyond it. A human child had changed the balance of the stars. Not with weapons or commands, but with empathy. Embassies formed, alliances renewed, and the story of dragons shifted from fear to respect. Aurelian became an ambassador between species, his voice carrying Myra's lesson wherever he went. Years later, Myra stood taller, but her eyes were the same. Ships still visited, lining up politely beyond the clouds. They came not for conquest, but for counsel. Myra spoke to leaders, traders, and wanderers, always repeating the same truth. Help is never small, and kindness echoes farther than fear. Aurelian often rested nearby, a guardian and a friend. "You saved the stars, little one," he told her once. Myra smiled and shook her head. "No," she said, "I just opened the door." And from that door, the galaxy learned that even the smallest hand could lift the heaviest soul, and that a single act of compassion could call an armada of hope to a quiet human street. Long after the first fleets arrived, and the streets were no longer broken with silence, Myra learned that miracles did not stop once the sky calmed. They simply changed shape. The city transformed slowly, not in sudden flashes of light, but in steady mornings where people woke without fear. Gardens grew where rubble once slept. Children played under open skies without learning how to hide first. Yet Myra noticed something important. Not everyone trusted the change. Some watched the ships with narrowed eyes, waiting for betrayal, waiting for history to repeat itself. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted Aurelian's scales in gold, Myra sat beside him on the rebuilt overlook above the sea. "Do you think they will forget?" she asked softly. "Forget kindness, forget why the ships came." Aurelian lowered his great head until his eye was level with her. "Memory fades when comfort grows," he said, "but stories endure." That was when Myra understood what still needed to be done. Saving a dragon had opened the door, but keeping it open required more than fleets and treaties. The next day, instead of greeting diplomats or star captains, Myra walked the streets. She visited shelters, listening to stories no one else had time for. She sat with elders who remembered war and with children who had never known it. The ships watched quietly from orbit, learning from her example. Soon, alien envoys followed her lead, not as rulers, but as helpers. They repaired water systems with local hands, taught new energy methods without demanding control. They listened. Word spread beyond her world. On distant planets, stories were told of the human child who fed a dragon. But more importantly, of the girl who never stopped seeing the unseen. On a mining moon, where workers were treated as expendable, Myra arrived without announcement. She sat on the cold metal floor and shared a meal with those at the bottom. The overseers protested, but the fleets above reminded them gently that compassion had allies. On a border station where species clashed over old grudges, Myra asked them to tell their stories. Not their demands, not their threats. Their stories. It took days, sometimes weeks. But grudges softened, not erased, but understood. And understanding proved stronger than force. Aurelian watched all of this with growing awe. "You are doing what dragons once failed to do," he told her. "You are uniting without ruling." Myra laughed quietly, sitting on his foreleg. "I am just helping where I can," she said. Years passed, and Myra grew into a symbol she never asked to be. Statues were proposed and refused. Titles were offered and declined. Instead, she asked for something simple. Teach children to care before they are taught to fear. Schools formed across systems, built on shared values rather than shared enemies. History was taught honestly, including the hunting of dragons, including human mistakes, including alien ones. No species was spared the truth. One day, a small child approached Myra during a gathering on a distant world. The child held a broken mechanical bird, wings bent and sparking. Everyone else had told them it was useless. Myra knelt, smiling the same way she had years ago beside a wounded dragon. "Let us see what it needs," she said. As she worked, Aurelian felt the ancient oaths stir once more. Not because of dragons this time, but because kindness itself had become a living force. The fleets no longer needed to arrive in great numbers. The galaxy had learned to answer small acts on its own. On the anniversary of the day Myra first met Aurelian, the sky above her home filled again with ships. Not for protection, not for repayment, but for celebration. Representatives from countless worlds gathered, bringing music, art, and stories. They spoke not of power, but of moments. Moments when someone chose to help instead of turning away. Aurelian addressed them all, his voice calm and proud. "Once we believed strength was measured in fire and fear. A child taught us it is measured in mercy." Myra stood quietly beside him, holding her grandmother's hand. She felt no pride, only gratitude. That night, as the stars shimmered brighter than ever, Myra looked at the line of ships stretching into infinity. All of them once strangers, now neighbors. She whispered a promise into the wind. "As long as I live, no one who asks for help will be unseen." The galaxy listened, not because she commanded it, but because she had already proven she meant every word.